Hello, and welcome to the Tex Mix. My name is Jessica Montoya Coggins, and today I am joined by the new chair of the Dallas County Democratic Party, Kristy Noble.
Hi, Jessica. Good to be here.
Very nice to see you. So Kristy, again, congratulations. You were recently elected to this position, but what made you decide to run for county chair?
Well, getting into politics wasn't a lifelong goal at all. I got into politics and realized that I needed to do something very close after the 2016 election. I really started wanting to do something of action, and I started registering voters, and then realized that, especially after that election, there was a huge groundswell of people who wanted to do something, and really all they needed was a little bit of direction. And so at that point, I worked with a couple other activists, and we started a group in East Dallas called the Funky East Dallas Democrats, the Feds. And it really was amazing how it took off, and with a little direction and a little encouragement and a little coaching, a lot of people, a little bit at a time, could make a big impact. And in 2018, we were able to increase voter turnout, Democratic voter turnout in our area of the county by 4%. And if that would have been extrapolated across the county, we would have been able to get more than half of the votes that Beto would have needed to win in that election. And so I saw firsthand what grassroots neighborhood organizing can do. And when I started thinking about it after the 2020 election, I was like, I think that we could do this, and I want to be a part of that to help flip Texas. And so I had planned to run in 2022 in the primary for this position, and then my predecessor resigned, and so the 1 year race turned into a 1 month race, and that's kind of how it happened.
Okay, so I do actually have to ask a little bit on the note about the Funky East Dallas Democrats.
Yeah.
Who came up with that name?
So the other founders it was Jill Cochran and Joe Sutton, and they were activists, and Jill and Joe have both been involved in politics for a long time. And we knew we wanted it to be fun, and we knew we wanted to draw people to it, and East Dallas is kind of funky. So they came up with it. And then we just went branding it and made a big impact. But I will say, you have to be careful when knocking on doors. You can't say, hey, we're with the Feds.
Yes, I could understand the danger in that. Well, I just had to ask. I was born and raised in East Dallas, so I was just like, it is a very funky place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when, I think the role of a county chair, I think there's like this image of like, oh, you're just going to like state fairs, or, there's like almost this old timey feel to it, even though that's not kind of the case. So, how has it been in the new transition, and sort of what are you envisioning for this year and for next year, as we do have some very important elections coming up?
Yeah, well, so really when it comes down to it, the statutory requirements of a county party and a county chair are very few when it comes down to, brass tacks. You have to run the primary election in the county, and then you have to conduct the county executive committee meetings, which are basically the precinct chairs, and I'm the chair of that meeting, and that has to be done quarterly. Outside of that, the role of a county party is really left up to the desires, the energy, and the imagination of the county chair. So it can be as little or as much as the chair brings to the position. My take on what I would like to see out of the Dallas County Democratic Party is that Dallas County is a Democratic county, right? We've been claiming that and talking about that since 2006, when the amazing folks took over and won the majority of the county seats, judicial and other countywide offices. And Dallas County is the 8th largest county in the country, right? And so and the second largest in Texas, right behind Harris County. And so what I see that we should be able to do, we should be able to lead absolutely the region, if not the state, in Democratic voter turnout. There are huge swaths of the county that have not been, basically cultivated and outreach to on an ongoing basis at all. And so there are areas where we have people who vote 80% of the time. Their propensity is to vote Democratic, but we only have 50% turnout in those areas. So my goal is to create a professionally run organization where we have director level people at all of the major points: executive directors, field and outreach folks, communications and finance folks, where we're creating a budget and an outreach program that's going to be doing it 365 days a year, and going into those communities that feel like they have been, left behind by the Democratic Party. We're already working, and as soon as we took office, we did a listening tour that went to areas of the county and got with people of all different contingencies from the Democratic Party. And what I heard was, we are not being listened to, we are not being reached out to, and we feel forgotten. And my goal is to make sure that all parts and all people within the Democratic Party know that the party is here, and we're going to be with them all year long and all season long to make sure that they have what they need to make the right decisions and to get their folks out to vote.
Yeah. I was looking at a lot of the social media feeds that y'all have, and so I noticed a listening tour. I know that I think there was a trash cleanup that occurred over the weekend.
Yeah, just last weekend, we were in Dixon Circle, which is in the neighborhood of South Dallas, not far from Fair Park, and there's a young man named O'Neill, Brian O'Neill, and he created an initiative called Clean the Block. And basically it's an environmental justice initiative where neighborhood by neighborhood, we're making a difference by cleaning up the area, educating folks on the different code compliance things and what can be done by the city. And we got about 50 or 60 Democrats down, and we helped clean up the area. And it was a great neighborhood event. Got to talk to a lot of folks and register a few voters as well.
That's great. That's great. I know that 2020 was a very challenging year for Democrats, especially campaigning was severely limited due to COVID-19. Thanks to Republican incompetence, there is a worse strain of COVID-19 that has crippled our hospitals and sort of made things more challenging. How has that sort of impacted things? And as we do potentially get at some point, once redistricting is done, we will have a primary date next year. How have you kind of been reimagining also sort of safety protocols with all this?
Absolutely. Yeah, we, the 2020 election, we knew that it was going to be big. We never realized that we would have to deal with COVID as well. And so the Democratic Party and Democrats all across the state and all across the nation had to make some hard decisions, right? And we made the decisions to not put ourselves, our staff, our volunteers, or the voters in danger, basically. And so there is no doubt that affected how we worked in 2020 and probably some of the outcome of 2020. At this point, it's a different ball game, right? We have vaccines across the nation. Over 50% of the people are double vaccinated. Over 70% of the people are, have at least one shot. Our internal staff were all vaccinated. As the Delta variant has been increasing, we are putting protocols in place in the office and when we're dealing with volunteers and masking and social distancing. The events that we're doing, we're making sure that they're all outside, open air, and that we're following all the CDC guidelines, and we'll continue that. But the thing that is different is that, we have at least that number of vaccinations, or that percentage of vaccinations of the population, even though it is a little bit lower here in Texas. But we are going to continue to do that outreach in a safe way. There is nothing like organizing at the neighborhood level, building those relationships, building that trust to educate and spread the goals that we have as a Democratic Party. So we're continuing to do that. And part of the plan is to lay out a plan for precinct chairs and support that plan. And it is all around events at the neighborhood level. And we're going to be doing that safely. And then as we get to the primary season and the generals, we're going to be knocking on doors, and we're going to be doing it in a safe manner. We're going to ensure that folks are vaccinated, wearing those masks. And I think that's going to be all the difference in the 2022 election.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you've been talking with a lot of folks that don't really get a lot of outreach from the Democratic Party, and we are heading into a midterm election. Traditionally, there is a bit of a drop off, and even in 2020, there was some differences. Joe Biden's level versus some candidates that were running for state house. On the Senate side, and a lot of other local races too. How are you sort of envisioning working with those campaigns, with those candidates? Because even of something like a school board, you're seeing how important it is to have good leadership on that level. As we've seen, we've all seen the images from what's happening there. So how are you kind of thinking in terms of that?
Yeah, I think, traditionally, county parties and, state parties have shied away and stepped back from the municipal elections and from the local elections, because they are supposed to be, the goal is that they're nonpartisan, but we all know that that's really not the case. And as I was running for this position and listening to what folks wanted to see from the county party, besides, raising level of professionalism, transparency, supporting the precinct chairs. The other thing was to begin to create a pathway and a bench for Democratic candidates to come up through the ranks, so that we have a pipeline for good candidates in all different, elections and all different positions and offices. And so I believe that we need to take a stand in these municipal local elections and support candidates that are supportive and pushing our values. And so the county party will be doing that and getting behind candidates that are on our side of the fence and are pushing those values. Absolutely. We won't be endorsing individual candidates, but we will be saying these are the Democrats in the race.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any, we're coming off the end of a special session that has been, I think, particularly heinous on a whole host of levels. Do you have anything that you're trying to tell, folks who might feel dejected or, gosh, I can't believe this state, there's another abortion ban. We've got this anti-trans legislation. We've got the voter suppression bill. It almost feels like there's so much. Is there anything that you sort of want to impart to that young, ideal progressive out there?
Yeah, I think really that Democrats are still fighting for working class people to make sure that we are having safe, quality public schools, that we are, working for good, affordable, accessible health care and for living wages. And if you look at on the side of the Republicans, they are fighting against all of those things, plus your right to vote. And if we look at where we are as Democrats, I know that it seems like we're always fighting, and we always are at this point, but we're not going to stop. Right now, we have President Biden in the White House. We have the House of Representatives, and we have the Senate. So what we have to do is take solace in that. And if you realize from a national perspective, when President Biden took over, we finally were able to sleep at night just a little bit, right? And so if you're dejected as a Democrat, I encourage you to look at what really is the state of our Democratic Party, what we have done. Without Joe Biden, without the House of Representatives, we would not have the COVID relief bill that we've had. We would not be getting the advance on child credits, which is helping people pay for their groceries right now. And, more at the state level, we are getting praised from the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Our representatives broke quorum. She is stating that on the House floor, and she is saying that, the Texas Democratic delegation has fought for the right to vote for every single Texan, and really, when it comes down to it, every single American, because that helped get the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed ahead of time or ahead of schedule within the House of Representatives. So now we're just waiting to get the House to do that. So what I would say to those folks is, it is a battle, but we have not given up the battle, and we have not given up the war, and we are continuing to fight. So, invest in Dallas County. We are going to be the leader, along with Harris County, in flipping Texas blue in the next several years.
Yeah, I do remember the Saturday when they finally called the election for President Biden. And I slept 9.5 hours that night, actually.
Absolutely. And you hadn't slept that long in a while, had you?
No, those days were, the days in between were particularly cruel and very anxiety inducing. One final question. Has there been anything that's sort of surprised you as you've taken over this role, or something where you're like, oh, I never, thought about this, but now this is something that I didn't anticipate, or maybe.
To be honest, there are a lot of things that we are putting in place that I didn't think we would be having to put in place. Some basic things within the organizational structure. I had never thought about running for office or being a politician or being this politically active. And, before I got involved in politics, there always seemed to be a very large distance between the voter and the people that they were electing. It seemed to me, gosh, they're so far up there, and they're so different. They're just those names on TV. And I am happily and very pleasantly surprised at the response that we've been getting to the changes that we're going to make. And I think that I've realized that anyone with desire and drive and focus can get into any political position and make a huge difference. And that's what I'm trying to impart on everybody that I meet. All we have to do is a little bit at a time, a little bit from every person, and together this Democratic Party can make a huge difference. And I've been able to see that firsthand. So.
Great. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about the Dallas County Democratic Party? Also, I know that y'all are very active on social media now, so feel free to share all the handles and where we can find y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is dallasdemocrats.org, and we're going to be launching a new website and some new branding by the time this comes out. So we're excited for everyone to go and check that out. And we're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well. And to be honest, I don't even know those handles right off the top of my head. I think they're all Dallas Democrats. Yeah,
I think that's right. Yes. So it's funny. We also Texas Signal. We launched a new website recently.
Oh, great!
So, yeah, it's very cool. Y'all can check it out. But there's also a whole podcast column. So Tex Mix is easy to find there as well.
Awesome. Well, this has been great, Jessica. I certainly appreciate you having me on.
Well, my thanks to Kristy Noble, the Honorable Kristy Noble, the new chair of the Dallas County Democratic Party. And thank you so much for listening to today's episode. You can listen to the Tex Mix wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google. I think we're also going to be on Amazon pretty soon. And be sure to follow us at texassignal.com. Thanks, guys.